The air in the house felt heavy that evening, like the walls themselves were holding on to a silence that neither of them wanted to break. Emma stood in the kitchen, pacing between the counter and the stove, her hands busy with small tasks she didn't really need to do. She washed a dish that was already clean, wiped the counter twice, and adjusted the fruit bowl as though it mattered. None of it eased the knot in her chest. She was waiting for Ryan. Her son had turned 18 only a few weeks earlier, but lately it felt as though he was slipping further and further away from her. The boy who once shared everything with her now walked through the door with little more than a quick hello. He spent most of his time in his room, headphones on, lost in a world she couldn't reach. Emma told herself this was normal, that teenagers needed space, that independence was healthy, but it still hurt. She missed the closeness they once had. That night, the clock ticked past 9 before she finally heard the front door creak open. Ryan stepped in, his backpack slung over one shoulder, his hair slightly messy from the wind. He looked tired, his shoulders heavy, his eyes shadowed with something she couldn't name. Emma's heart ached at the sight. She wanted to rush to him, to ask about his day, to remind him that she was still here for him. But the words that came out weren't the ones she had rehearsed in her mind. "Ryan," she began softly, trying to sound calm. "I feel like I don't even know you anymore." She hadn't planned to say it like that. She had meant to tell him she missed him, that she wanted to understand him, that she was worried about him. But instead, her words came out sharp, stripped of the tenderness she carried in her heart. And as soon as she heard herself say them, she knew they were wrong. Ryan froze in the doorway, his hand still clutching the strap of his bag. His face went still, like he had just been struck. Slowly he turned his head toward her, and the look in his eyes made Emma's stomach twist. It wasn't anger, not exactly. It was hurt. Deep, unexpected hurt. "You don't know me?" he repeated, his voice quiet but unsteady. Emma opened her mouth, desperate to explain, but he shook his head before she could speak. "Maybe you never wanted to." The words hit her harder than she expected. She felt as if the ground beneath her feet had shifted. Ryan walked past her, his steps quick, and disappeared into his room before she could find the right words to stop him. The sound of his door clicking shut echoed through the quiet house. Emma stood frozen in the kitchen, her hands gripping the edge of the counter. Her heart pounded, her throat tight. She wanted to go after him, to knock on his door and tell him she hadn't meant it that way. But fear held her back. Fear that he wouldn't listen. Fear that she had already done too much damage. The rest of the evening passed in a haze. Emma reheated dinner, though Ryan never came out to eat. She sat at the table alone, pushing food around her plate, her thoughts running in circles. She replayed her words again and again, wishing she could pull them back, wishing she had chosen differently. "I don't even know you anymore." What a cruel thing to say to someone she loved more than life itself. Later, as she walked down the hall to her bedroom, she paused outside Ryan's door. She could hear faint music through the walls, the steady beat of something unfamiliar. She raised her hand to knock, then lowered it again. What would she say if he opened the door? That she was sorry, that she hadn't meant it, that she did know him, even if sometimes she didn't understand the choices he made. She stayed there for a long moment, her heart aching, before finally walking away. In bed, she stared at the ceiling, unable to sleep. She thought of the years that had passed so quickly, how Ryan used to curl up beside her on the couch, how he used to beg her to stay a little longer when she tucked him in. She remembered his first soccer game, the way his face lit up when he scored his first goal. She remembered the way he used to tell her everything, from the friends he made at school to the dreams he had at night. When had that boy disappeared? Tears slipped down her cheeks as she turned on her side. She told herself she would fix it tomorrow. She would apologize. She would explain what she had really meant, that she missed him, that she wanted to know what was on his mind, that she was scared of losing him to the world outside their home. She promised herself she wouldn't let her fear speak louder than her love again. That deep down, she knew something had shifted. Ryan's words echoed in her mind. Maybe you never wanted to. She didn't know how to erase them, didn't know how to convince him that they weren't true. For the rest of the night, the house was still. Ryan stayed behind his closed door and Emma lay awake, haunted by the conversation that had lasted less than a minute, that had left a mark that might take much longer to heal. She didn't know it yet, but that single moment, the words spoken too quickly, the hurt that followed, was the beginning of a change neither of them could escape. Nothing had been the same since. The next morning, Emma woke early, though she hadn't slept much. The sun was just beginning to rise, painting the kitchen in soft gold. She made coffee, the familiar sound of the machine filling the silence. Her hands trembled as she set out 2 mugs, though she doubted Ryan would join her. Still, it felt wrong not to try. She thought about knocking on his door, waking him before school, offering breakfast like she used to. But the memory of his face from the night before, the hurt in his eyes, the finality in his words, made her hesitate. Instead, she sat at the table, sipping slowly, listening for his footsteps. Ryan emerged a little after 7. His hair was messy, his backpack already slung over his shoulder. He didn't look at her as he grabbed an apple from the counter. Emma's heart ached at the distance between them. "Good morning," she said softly, her voice almost a whisper. "Morning," he replied, but it was quiet, flat, and he kept his eyes on the floor. Emma wanted to say more. She wanted to apologize right there, to explain that her words hadn't come out the way she meant. But something in his body language, his stiff shoulders, the way he didn't pause, stopped her. She was afraid that if she pushed too hard, he would retreat further. "You want me to pack you some lunch?" she asked, trying to sound casual. "No, I'll grab something," he said quickly, already moving toward the door. And then he was gone. The silence he left behind felt heavier than anything Emma had ever known. She sat at the table, staring at his empty mug, untouched. She whispered to herself, "I just wanted to tell you I care." But the words were swallowed by the quiet dot at work. Emma found it impossible to focus. Her colleagues noticed her distraction, but she brushed off their concern with forced smiles. All she could think about was Ryan. Was he okay? Was he angry? Or worse, had he stopped caring about what she thought altogether? That evening, Ryan came home later than usual. Emma had cooked his favorite roast chicken with mashed potatoes, hoping the meal might break the ice. She set the table for 2, lit a small candle, and tried to make it feel warm, inviting, familiar. When Ryan walked in, she greeted him with a hopeful smile. "Dinner's ready." He glanced at the table, then at her, and for a moment she thought he might sit down. But instead he muttered, "I'm not really hungry. I'll eat later," and started toward his room. Emma's chest tightened. She couldn't let him disappear again without trying. "Ryan, wait," she said, standing quickly. Her voice shook. He paused, hand on the railing of the stairs, but he didn't turn around. "I didn't mean what I said last night," Emma began, her words tumbling out. "I do know you. I've always known you. You're my son. I was scared. Scared of losing you. Scared of not being enough for you anymore." Ryan stood still for a long moment. Emma held her breath, waiting for him to respond. Finally, he said quietly, "It still felt like you meant it." And then he went upstairs, leaving her alone again. Emma sank back into her chair, tears welling in her eyes. She realized that apologies weren't enough. Words alone couldn't erase the hurt. She needed to show him, somehow, that she was still here, that she wanted to listen, that she cared about who he was becoming. Over the next week, Emma tried small gestures. She left notes in his backpack short. Simple things like "I'm proud of you" or "I love you" always. Sometimes he didn't mention them at all. Other times she found them crumpled at the bottom of the bag. But she kept writing them, hoping one might reach him. She asked gentle questions when he came home, about his classes, his friends, his music. But most of the time, he answered in single words. Still, she noticed the way his eyes softened when she asked, even if he didn't show it fully. One Saturday morning, Emma decided to take a chance. She knocked on his door, holding 2 mugs of hot chocolate instead of coffee. "Can I come in?" she asked. Ryan hesitated before saying, "Yeah." She stepped inside, looking around his room. Posters lined the walls, bands she didn't recognize, places she didn't know he cared about. His desk was cluttered with notebooks, sketches, and half-finished projects. She realized how much of his world was hidden behind that door. She handed him a mug. "I thought maybe we could sit for a bit. No pressure, no questions. Just sit." To her surprise, Ryan nodded. They sat together in silence, sipping slowly. It wasn't much, but to Emma, it felt like the beginning of a bridge being rebuilt. As the days turned into weeks, the silence between them slowly shifted. It wasn't gone, but it wasn't as sharp. Sometimes, Ryan would linger in the kitchen while she cooked, scrolling on his phone, but still there. Sometimes he would mention a teacher's name or a funny thing that happened at school. Small pieces of himself, offered carefully. Emma cherished every one of them. She learned not to push too hard, not to demand more than he was ready to give. She learned to listen, even when the words were few. One night, as she sat reading on the couch, Ryan surprised her by sitting down beside her. He didn't say anything at first, just leaned back, his arm resting on the cushion. Emma kept her eyes on her book, afraid to break the moment. Then he asked quietly, "Mom, did you really mean it? That you don't know me?" Emma closed her book and turned to him. Her heart ached, but her voice was steady. "No, Ryan, I know you. Maybe not every detail, maybe not every thought in your head. But I know the boy who always wanted to build things, who never gave up on a puzzle, who laughed so hard his whole body shook. I know the young man who cares deeply, even when he tries to hide it. I may not understand everything, but I know you and I love you." Ryan didn't respond right away. He looked down, his fingers tapping against his leg. Then he nodded, just once. "Okay." It wasn't a full reconciliation, but it was something. A seed planted. Emma realized then that the silence wasn't just distance. It was space. Space he needed to grow, to figure himself out. And her role wasn't to fill that silence with her own fears, it was to stay present, patient, and ready when he was ready to let her back in. She didn't know what the future held, but for the first time since that night, she felt a flicker of hope. It was late on a Friday evening when the moment finally came. Emma had just finished cleaning the kitchen after dinner. She noticed Ryan hadn't gone upstairs yet. Instead, he was sitting in the living room, the glow from the TV flickering across his face. He looked tired but calm, not guarded the way he had been for weeks. Emma hesitated in the doorway. She had been waiting for a chance like this, a moment when the silence between them didn't feel heavy but open. She walked in slowly and sat at the other end of the couch. For a while, neither of them spoke. The sounds from the TV filled the space. Finally, Ryan broke the quiet. "Mum, can I ask you something?" Her heart leapt. "Of course." He turned toward her, his eyes serious. "Why did you say that night that you don't know me?" Emma took a deep breath. She had been rehearsing this answer in her head for days, but now that the question was in front of her, it felt heavier. Because I was afraid, she said honestly. I saw you growing up so fast, making choices on your own, pulling away, and I panicked. It felt like the boy I used to know was slipping away, and I didn't know how to reach you. I didn't mean I don't know who you are. It meant I was scared of losing the connection we had. Ryan's jaw tightened, but he listened. That alone gave Emma hope. I'm still me, Mom, he said quietly. I'm just older. I'm trying to figure things out. Sometimes I don't tell you everything because I don't want to disappoint you, or because I want to handle things myself. Emma nodded slowly. I understand, but I want you to know you could never disappoint me by being honest. Even if you make mistakes, even if you choose differently than I would, I'll still be here. Ryan looked down at his hands. It didn't feel like that when you said what you said. Her chest ached. I know, and I'm sorry. I hurt you. I can't take that moment back, but I want to do better. She leaned forward, her voice softer now. Tell me what you need from me. How can I support you without making you feel trapped or judged? For the first time in weeks, Ryan didn't look away. He held her gaze, his eyes a mixture of uncertainty and longing. I need you to trust me, he said. Even when I mess up, even when I don't do things the way you think I should. I need you to believe that I can figure things out. Emma felt tears sting her eyes. Ryan, I do trust you. More than you know. Maybe I didn't show it enough, but I've always believed in you. Silence hung in the air again, but this time it wasn't painful. It was heavy with meaning. Then Ryan said, almost in a whisper, sometimes it feels like you still see me as a little kid. But I'm not anymore. Emma reached for his hand gently. You're right. You're not a little boy anymore. You're becoming a man. And that's beautiful, Ryan. Even if it's hard for me to let go. I need to learn how to be the mom you need now, not just the mom you needed before. For a long moment, Ryan didn't move. Then slowly, he let her hold his hand. His grip was firm, steady, as if he had been waiting for this. They sat like that for several minutes, saying nothing. The weight that had pressed between them for weeks began to lift. Finally, Ryan spoke again. There's something I haven't told you. Emma's heart raced, but she kept her voice calm. What is it? He took a deep breath. I've been really stressed about college. Everyone keeps asking what I want to do, what I want to study. Then I don't know. I feel like if I pick the wrong thing, I'll ruin my life. And I didn't want to tell you because I thought you'd be disappointed. Emma squeezed his hand. Oh, Ryan, thank you for telling me. And no, I'm not disappointed. Not knowing is normal. You don't have to have it all figured out right now. His shoulders relaxed slightly. But everyone else seems to know what they're doing. She shook her head. That's not true. A lot of people pretend they know, but inside, they're just as unsure. It's okay to take time, to explore, to change your mind. What matters is that you stay true to yourself. Ryan let out a long breath, almost like a sigh of relief. I wish I told you sooner. Emma smiled through her tears. Me too, but we're here now. And that's what matters. For the first time in weeks, Ryan leaned against her shoulder, just like he used to when he was younger. Emma felt her heart swell. She didn't move, afraid to break the moment. After a while, he said softly, I missed this. Me too, she whispered. From that night forward, things weren't perfect, but they were different. The distance that had grown between them began to close. Ryan still needed space, still wanted independence. But now there was trust. Now there was honesty. Emma learned to listen without jumping in, and Ryan learned that sharing his fears didn't make him weak. It made him stronger. Weeks later, as Emma watched him head out the door to meet his friends, backpack slung casually over his shoulder, she felt a quiet pride. He was still her son, still the boy she had raised, but he was also becoming someone new. And she was finally ready to let that happen. She whispered to herself as the door closed, "I know you, Ryan. I always will." And for the first time since that night, she truly believed it.